Hello there, everybody. Your August 6th edition of AM Sports Live is now on the air. I am Andrew Goldstein, co-host on NFL Goal Line Live with Nick Rice, and of course, co-host of this show, AM Sports Live. And I am here with Matt Markow making his triumphant return to the air. Matt, how's it going?
Oh, it's great to be back. It's been a while, but back and I'm ready to contribute again.
All right, so I addressed this a little bit on the last edition of AM Sports Live when I had Gavin on, but we last show was two and a half, 3 weeks ago. It was on a Monday. That Tuesday you were having wisdom teeth pulled.
I believe it was Tuesday and then Wednesday.
Tuesday and Wednesday,
Yeah.
sorry. Not a pleasant experience, I'm guessing.
Well, you hear a lot of horror stories about it. I had to have three pulled.
Oh boy.
The thing is, though, the top teeth don't hurt at all. But when you get the bottom teeth pulled, that's really just is the problem tooth, and that sticks with you. Thankfully, I only had to have my right bottom tooth pulled, but it was weird because during the procedure, you don't feel anything. You
Right.
know, they put on the laughing gas, and I actually, before he put on the nitrous, I talked to my dentist about the Seinfeld scene where Jerry's dentist, before he gives Jerry the nitrous, he takes a hit off of it himself, and he thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, so I was out of it for the whole procedure, and I didn't feel anything, and it was a little bit weird actually. But once I got home, like the next 2-3 days,
hmm
those,
That's when you start to feel it.
yeah, that was pretty bad. And after about the fourth Jello helping that I had, it was just like I need to eat some steak or something. I couldn't handle just eating yogurt and Gatorade.
Yogurt Gatorade soup is another
Yeah,
one, but
soup. It was awful.
that
I wanted to eat solid food, but now after about 4 or 5 days, it starts getting good again. So
well, that's actually the point I got to with braces a couple years back. I mean, obviously, having wisdom teeth pulled is probably a good bit more painful, but when you get braces, for those of you who don't know, same deal. You can't really eat solid food for 2 or 3 days.
yeah,
And then there's that one point where you just decide, okay, screw it. I don't care if my teeth fall out. I
yeah.
am having a cookie or like steak or something.
Steak's a big jump.
Just,
More like some cereal or
yeah.
something, or
hmm
something like yeah. Just eating
Like a bread,
just
even.
eating oatmeal every day for breakfast is just like I feel old. Like what's next? My mom's gonna bring out some Metamucil, chug that. Like it just feels like an old like I lost all my teeth.
Boniva.
Yeah, it feels like I'm George Washington with wooden teeth or something. It was just awful. But yeah, now I'm okay.
All right, so we had that going on. That's why we couldn't do the show that week. Then the week after that, I was up in Boston for sports broadcasting camps, and shout out to everybody in SBC
Place where you
Nation.
honed your broadcasting skills, right?
Yes, I did.
Listeners will be able to hear a significant improvement with,
Mhm.
I believe the whole week you just,
Well,
you worked on your skills,
yeah,
right?
during the day, I was working on my skills and broadcasting, doing play-by-play, cool stuff like that. At night, and actually, I mentioned this on the
At
show.
night it really got crazy.
On,
We won't share some more graphic details, but you can use your imagination.
on the show previous to this, on AM Sports Live, I actually mentioned at night, everybody in SBCLA was trying to hold productive meetings about the future of the radio show. In Boston, we were playing rug burn ball, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. It was your dad's birthday that week too, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
lot of birthdays. My dad, my uncle, and me, we all have birthdays within a week of each other. So in the same week,
oh
so
boy.
from July 23rd to July 30th. So yeah, it's actually good to get them all out of the way,
Mm-hmm.
in one week. So
Yeah, I actually feel that way too. Well, in my family, it's around Christmas because we have Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Dad's birthday's the next day, Grandma's birthday's the day
wow,
after that, and then I think somebody's birthday is the 28th. I forget who, and
wow.
if he or she is listening, they're probably going to be insulted
Oh
that I
yeah,
forgot them. But
yeah. That's
so let's hope that it's just my mind. playing tricks on me. But okay, so
It's a bit of a
after
slap in
that,
the face.
sorry, whoever I may have
It's like taking
insulted.
off a white dueling glove and just slapping him in the face.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what it is.
All right, so the week after Boston, uh, I was up in Portland, Maine for a couple of
Well, hang
days.
on now. You can't just introduce the fact that you played rugburn ball and not
Well,
elaborate on that.
like here's the thing with rugby ball, um,
Let's educate the people
instru-
that don't know what that is, because I actually don't.
let me try
It
to
sounds a little weird, I have to say.
let me try and formulate the most normal way to describe this. Have you ever played handball before?
Yes.
It's like handball, but you can only crawl. You can either crab walk or like just like walk on knees. Like you can't get up, and
So
essentially
where does the rug burn comes in
the rug burn,
from the
like if you don't
crawling?
wear knee pads, your knees are just like shot to hell after an hour of this.
Okay.
Uh like you know how the concussion issue is a big thing in football now?
Right.
If they're a professional
Oh,
rugby ball league, we'd be paying for like knee replacements after 15 years of
yes.
playing rugby ball. But
Can this be an actual sport?
it could be. I feel like the flaw about rugby ball is the tallest people, like the team with the most tall people, will have a huge advantage. Or like there was this one kid in camp that's kind of like how we talked about the home run derby little kids, where there's always one that's 20 or 30 pounds heavier and 4 inches taller than everyone else. There's one kid like that in camp, and if you just stick him in goal, then it's very, very difficult. But I feel like this could be an actual sport, and it's a SBC Boston tradition.
Okay. Yeah, well, okay, how about this? More interesting to watch, golf or a game of rug burn ball?
Oh, game of rugby ball.
Oh.
But that's the thing. Rugby ball just like even just because of the intensity. Because part of what makes golf so boring is that no unless somebody just hit a hole in one to win the Masters, nobody actually shows any excitement.
Right.
Like nobody brings signs, nobody gets drunk before a game or anything like that. It's just far
Was that
too
happening
simple.
before a game of rug burn ball?
No, but pro rugby ball it probably would. But you
Yeah.
like you get it, right? There's
However, there was a Happy Gilmore classic golf movie. There's not a Happy Gilmore of rug burn ball, is there?
oh no, there is not a movie made about rugby
No, I
ball
mean the
yet.
equivalent of,
Oh,
or a
okay.
Tiger Woods equivalent. Was there anybody like compare yourself? Like, would you be the Phil Mickelson of rug
Well,
burn ball?
to
Would
put
you
this
say?
well to put this in a basketball sense, because there's 6 people on the court, 2 offense who can't go in your own 1/3 of the court, 2 defense who can't go beyond your own 1/3 of the court, and 2 flex who can go anywhere.
Okay.
So basketball is kind of a more apt analogy since, well, maybe soccer and hockey would be, but I don't know the first thing about either soccer or
Lacrosse,
hockey.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, soccer,
So
soccer, lacrosse, hockey. More of that.
also you know how in Little League they always stick the bad kids in center field or right center because nobody ever hits out there in like an 11-year-old game.
I'm getting flashbacks. But
Me too.
yes, yes.
Me too, but they always, always, always stuck me on defense.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't terrible. I mean, I wasn't good, but I wasn't the worst kid there. I was how do you put this? Who's like a average center or power forward?
You were like
Or-
a Lamar
No,
Odom.
I was like an Omer Asich type.
Okay,
Just
alright.
defense, like some
And
good
so
defense and nothing else
and,
really.
and you asked to get traded when the tall kid went on your team, right?
Uh, well, that's the thing. I didn't ask to be traded this year. Last year I did because
Oh,
I
there
was
you
stuck
go.
under a terrible coach, Zeke.
Oh,
Damn it, Zeke. And you're just gonna act like you know who that
Oh,
is.
everyone knows who Zeke is. Come on.
Yeah,
Oh wait,
every-
you don't know Zeke?
Everybody knows
Everyone
Zeke.
knows Zeke.
Everybody, yeah,
It's
but
Zeke.
everybody at broadcasting was a delight except for Zeke.
The Zeke? We're talking about the Zeke, right?
The Ezekiel Sprague.
Oh, okay. All right. I just had to make sure.
All right, so but that was rugby ball. That was Boston. Then after that, I went up to Portland, Maine for a couple of days. Very, very nice place. Actually, fantastic food. That's one thing I gotta really give a shout out to Portland, Maine about. Great seafood.
Yeah, I think about Portland, I think about hipsters, but I guess
Uh,
that's only in Oregon, right?
this isn't the Portlandia
Oh, okay.
Portland.
All
This
right.
is the Maine version of Portland. And
Yeah.
it was actually very, very nice. I liked it there. But uh that Tuesday, believe it was last Tuesday at this point, we couldn't do a show because you were out getting your driver's license
That's right.
and generally celebrating your birthday. And by the way, happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you. Thank
Uh
you.
so what describe the whole driver's test thing because we were talking about this before the show and people have horror stories about it. I understand yours
Right.
wasn't so bad.
Well, a lot of people, one of our friends mutually failed, and
I'm looking right at you, Ray.
you just hear a lot about uh, y- you know bad instructors, bad luck on the course, hard time parking, whatever. And a lot of people said, well, parking is a big part of the test. Basically you need to learn how to parallel park. And obviously, when you get your permit a year before, that's not a focal point of the learning experience.
Right.
And in the year leading up to the test, you're not really parallel parking unless you're in the city or whatever. You're just, driving. Which,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a little weird that the biggest part of a driving test is parking.
Like if you can't parallel park, the only thing that you lose is parking options if you go into
I know.
downtown Princeton or something.
I feel like it's a driving test, not a parking. I don't know. It's
Exactly.
weird.
And by the way, doesn't measure your ability to drive on a highway or anything that could actually get you killed if you don't know how to do.
No.
No,
Although
parallel
I
parking.
did learn I am a great driver on a you know, half-mile course with no people or other cars
10 to
around.
15 miles an hour
That's
because
right.
all the deadly collisions happen at 15 and under.
Oh, listen. Stats everywhere prove that. But yeah, so get in the car and I just went around the course once, pulled up to the cones because they use cones to
Hmm.
parallel park on, and pulled in and nailed it. And so K turn out and head on over to the main building to get the license. And it was funny because I spent way more time waiting to actually get my license than taking the test.
You said
So,
that every horror story anyone's ever told about the DMV is true. What was your experience
oh,
like?
well, you have to fill out countless papers, and you're not really sure which booth to take it to, and you have to ask people, and it's weird. It was just it was a long process, and I feel like I mean, it wasn't as bad as what you would hear or see.
Like somebody slapping up the lunch break sign right as there were 20 people waiting or something.
Yeah, yeah, but it was a long time and it was pretty inefficient. But what are you gonna do? I got my license, and then we just celebrated the rest of the day.
Hmm.
So it was nice.
And then last Friday there was a replacement on the show, Gavin Shaw.
I know I
Uh,
might be out of a
Gavin,
job.
yeah, the stat man, Gavin Shaw,
Stat machine.
the stat machine. There we go. Who once we start adding guests onto the show, which we may be doing as early as this Friday,
No
with
one knows more about Andre Iguodala than Gavin
nobody.
Shaw, and I will
Our,
take that to the bank.
yeah, a resident Andre Iguodala whisperer.
That's right. That's right. Can we
Yeah,
put that on the Discovery Channel,
that's your
please?
business. It's not the dog whisperer anymore. It's the Andre. No, but I mean, we make a joke out of it, but I feel like that could actually be a show, like Meta World Peace Whisperer. Like,
Oh my
just
God.
take any crazy NBA player, have like a personal whisperer, like
I don't even think Andre Iguodala is crazy. It's just that
yeah,
on that show, I just there was a lot of referring to Iggy and his
PER.
yeah. It was like right off the bat, like no one knows stats like Gavin Shaw over there. But yeah,
But yeah, we're gonna have guests on soon, perhaps as early as the Friday show. We're gonna have some of our friends on. We might have Gavin on in future
So
shows.
yeah,
The opportunities are endless for that.
let's tease. Next week we're having Mark Wahlberg and Denzel Washington.
We're having Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch
Yeah.
on.
After that, I
Who
think
knows? DiCaprio,
yeah,
John Hamm is coming
yeah.
on.
Well, we're a little too big for him, but
He'll get there.
yeah,
He's a rising stock,
yeah.
but
We only go A list, A plus list, but yeah.
well, um, this past Friday when Gavin was filling in, you were on vacation, right?
Yes, I went down to Maryland, Virginia, and Pennsylvania, and basically it was kind of a college trip, but also we got to see a lot of historical stuff.
You went to Gettysburg, right?
Went to Gettysburg in Pennsylvania, which is really cool. I'm interested in the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
It's, one of my favorite wars to study and stuff. And also Virginia, we went to Thomas Jefferson's house, Monticello, which is really like a marvel of architecture and
Mm-hmm.
technology because obviously at that time it was super advanced, super smart guy.
Right.
And yeah, so we just went around. We went to Amish country too,
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania. That was cool to see. Actually, when we went to Amish country, I saw something talking about an Amish mafia,
There's an Amish mafia?
and I was confused by that. But apparently, there was this show recently on like Discovery Channel or something called Amish Mafia,
Get
and
Scorsese on the
oh
horn.
my God. I was excited to hear about it, but it turns out that it's a fake. Like there isn't actually an Amish. I was envisioning people stabbing other people with pitchforks, running them over
With
with
like the getaway carriage.
yeah, running them over a horse and buggy. It was I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Rags to Riches being played in like what do you
Yeah,
call those things?
the piano coda of Layla
There
while
you
they
go.
playing in the background. Yeah, yeah, Amish fellas. Yeah, that's right.
There you go. But
I don't think De Niro's doing anything. We can call him up. He's
we
so
got to get Ray Liotta. Ray
oh yeah,
Liotta's been going nowhere the last couple
yeah.
years. It's
They've
reunite.
they've all soiled their careers to the point where I think it's realistic for them to do Amish Mafia.
Well, show was a fake, unfortunately, because that would have been a cool movie concept.
I still like to see the show though.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, me too. But you actually, just briefly, because we got to get on to biogenesis. What was your favorite college that you visited?
I really like the University of Maryland the most. I feel like even though the town surrounding it wasn't College Park wasn't as nice as the town around the University of Virginia or Penn State, but it's more of a self-contained. It's one of those universities that you don't really ever have to leave. It's kind of like its own community, and also it's only like a 20-minute train ride from Washington D.C. So
So you could go visit Ray when he gets into Georgetown.
yes, fingers crossed. But yeah, I mean it was.
And I'll be up freezing my ass off in Syracuse or Marquette or something.
That's right. Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. I don't know why you would want to do that, but I guess. But yeah, it was a really nice university. I don't. I think that was the best out of all three. So
All right, well, you're going on your West Coast university trip in a couple weeks, and we'll.
hopefully that's not that we're not that's not final yet. It's not confirmed yet. So
All right, well, we look forward to hearing about that when the
yeah.
time comes. But actual sports happened when
Well,
we were away,
yeah. Actual sports happened. Yes.
especially yesterday. Alex Rodriguez and I believe it was 12 or 13 others got suspended by Major League Baseball. They were implicated in the biogenesis scandal. We actually have a full list of them right
A
here.
lot of heavy hitters.
Obviously, A-Rod, he's gone for this year, gone for next year, and yeah, we can only hope gone forever from
Well, A-Rod is
baseball.
A-Rod, but let's talk about the tragedy of Johnny Peralta getting suspended. I
Uh,
mean, baseball has lost one of its shining stars.
the only really significant one on there is Nelson Cruz, because, not a, he's probably not an MVP candidate or anything like that, but he could conceivably affect
He
some
was one
things.
of Texas's best hitters this
Nelson
year.
Cruz,
There's no question about that.
Francisco Cervelli, living proof that PEDs don't really work. San Diego shortstop Everett Cabrera, Seattle catcher Jesus Montero. He's a pretty big prospect at one time with the
Yeah,
Yankees.
oh, of
Yankees
course.
minor leaguer Fernando Martinez. Phillies pitcher Antonio Bastardo, who's a decent relief pitcher. Astros pitcher Sergio Escalona. Suspension's better than playing for the Astros.
No, look at this
Sorry,
guy over
Houston.
here. Well, hold on. You brought up something earlier, just in passing, that suspension, PEDs don't really work.
Yeah, there. That's a thing, and that's what a lot of people fail to understand about PEDs. They work in the respect that they'll make you be a little bit better. They'll make a warning track fly ball carry out just over the fence. But you still have to have an incredible amount of innate skill to get to the point where PEDs even boost your game noticeably, like
You're right.
enough.
I think
To,
I brought up before the show.
it's not going to make you hit a 100-mile-per-hour
Right.
fastball.
It's not going to make Matt Markow or Andrew Goldstein step up to the plate against Justin Verlander and hit a Prince Fielder bomb over the
It's not
fence.
even gonna make me step up to the plate and our like when we have our sleepovers and we do a baseball game or a basketball game or whatever. It's not even gonna make me good at that, really.
Right, but someone with Barry Bonds' level of talent who is already hitting 35, 40 home runs a year,
Right.
that could rate that now suddenly he's hitting 70 homers.
It's kind of elevating you in proportion,
Right.
kind of to the talent you already had.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you can dislike these guys, and it's perfectly conceivable I mean, not conceivable, but perfectly justifiable, that's probably a better word, to dislike these people. But you can't claim that PEDs made anybody because these people had skill, obviously, before they started taking PEDs.
Yes.
Um, so the other people suspended, Jordani Valdespin for the Mets, Mets minor leaguer Cesar Puello, and free agents Faustino De Los Santos and Jordan Roberto. They're all suspended for 50 games, with the obvious exception of A-Rod, who is suspended through this year and next. And obviously, there have already been a few biogenesis-related suspensions,
Right,
most
right.
notably Ryan
Yeah.
Braun.
Well, what if, like, say, Antonio Bastardo hadn't been taking PEDs? He's only like a, average reliever at best. I mean, let's see him without PEDs. Like,
Well,
how would he even be able to get out of the minor leagues? I don't know.
well, that's the thing, and I've actually thought about this a lot. People keep saying that steroids give you a competitive advantage or PEDs give you a
Hmm.
competitive advantage, but they're available to everyone, so they're really cheating if everybody can do it. I mean, how is like you hear all these medical stories of sports about how they're taking tendons out of cadavers and putting them in, and they
Hmm.
have all these crazy new surgeries that people 30 years before them didn't have. That's your body. That's not using the natural healing powers of your body. You're getting outside help for that.
Hmm.
That's not cheating, and it shouldn't be. That's a competitive
You
advantage.
can just
But
say Kobe Bryant. You don't have to
yeah,
say some athletes.
oh boy, there's the Celtic loyalty coming in again. But if that's not cheating, why is steroids cheating? I mean, I'm just kind of taking a devil's advocate position here. By the
Uh,
way, devil's advocate, not one of Pacino's better
oh,
movies.
come on now. Yeah. Well, that's true. You say that steroids are available to everybody, so why is it not cheating? That doesn't mean everyone's taking them. As in, maybe in the late 1990s with McGuire and Sosa and stuff, maybe then a higher percentage of major leaguers were taking them. But now, I don't know how many major leaguers are taking them, but I don't think it's as much as it was 10, 15 years ago.
And I
Do
think
you?
that's a good thing. I
Yes.
mean, a lot of people will look at these suspensions and say, "Oh, we thought baseball was clean. We thought they took care of this." And look, they're just as corrupt as they were before. I feel like it's a good thing that baseball's not hiding this, that
Right.
they're working to clean up their game. And you look at things like football and basketball, and with basketball, they just got their union to agree to test for HGH.
That's right.
Football also very recently, and I've long thought this about steroids. You look at guys like Adrian Peterson, and we all say, "Wow, that's amazing," instead of, "Was he on anything?" So you have to ask yourself, do we actually care about steroids or do we only care when people get caught?
I think we only care when people get caught, or they make it exceedingly obvious, like
Right.
Barry Bonds' head just ballooning up to
He
a
was doing everything short of like taking the syringe up
right,
to the plate with
exactly,
him.
and hitting 73 home run. That and once you break a record that's as revered as the Babe's record and Hank Aaron's record like that, you're gonna have to face some sort of consequences, some sort of scrutiny. But if you're just, I don't think we really care if it's just a guy that. I don't know. I feel like
Well, I also think it's a different culture with different sports because baseball was around for 50, 60 years before the first anabolic steroids were invented. You had Ruth and Aaron and all of these old-time sports writers talking about respect of the game. And
that hasn't changed, by the way.
yeah, that hasn't changed, but like baseball's golden age was when it was the only sport from the early 1900s all the way up through the 60s.
America's pastime.
America's pastime, but football really came into its own during the
Right.
1970s. And when you read stories about what happened during the 70s in football, like the Oakland Raiders were actually taking steroids in doses meant for horses, like 1 ton heavy race horses during those days.
Sure.
And a lot of other people did too. So I feel like maybe it's a culture difference. Maybe it's because football kind of came into its own in a different way. We kind of look at football steroids differently.
By the way, whenever you bring up the Raiders, I think it's almost mandatory that you have to say them the way Chris Berman says them. The
Narrators.
Raiders. That makes it 10 times more enjoyable. But yes. Hold on, if I close my eyes, I can almost see Chris Berman sitting next to me right now. That's how good that impression was.
There you go.
But
But it's not as good as Dave Damashek's over on the Adam Carolla show, but
I don't know that show, but
yeah,
yes.
it's something.
Yes. But anyway, so, uh, well, how do you feel about not just in sports, but just regular people taking PEDs?
Hmm?
Just walking around. I mean, if they really enhance your life and they don't have too many, obviously steroids are proven to have a lot of negative side effects, but is HGH proven to really?
I feel like if I actually don't know, I probably should know this, but I don't know how steroids or HGH's legality outside of sports.
Right.
But
But
I feel like if they're not illegal and they and
well, and
you
steroids I definitely think cause have some negative effects to them, but HGH I think is just kind of a natural thing that your body produces, right?
right.
And so I don't know, and if HGH really enhances your life, I mean, obviously sports gives you a competitive edge, but if you're just a normal person walking around, you want to take HGH, it's not doesn't give you any negative consequences. Is that a bad thing? Should that be legal? I don't know.
No, I feel like it should
I
be.
feel like it should be too. I don't understand. I mean, imagine if you or I were on HGH. I mean, I feel like that'd be pretty awesome.
And well, that's the thing. I I was reading Bill Simmons' column once about well, it was the Red Sox running diary the night of their collapse. And it
Yeah.
was at the end of 2010 or 2011.
2011, I feel like.
2011, the fried chicken and beer
Yeah,
team.
yeah, yeah.
But he he and his friend had a conversation about if they were an athlete, when would they start taking HGH? And Bill said, I'd probably wait until my mid 30s and then I'd just start popping them in like
Right.
Starburst. And his friend said, I'm considering taking them anyways.
Yeah, well, no, and you hear about once people hit a certain age, whether it be late 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, their health starts to decline, and they can't stay up the way they used to. Obviously, it's not the same as when they were younger, but if you take HGH, would that maybe slow the aging process a little bit, make it a little bit more comfortable and later on in life? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. I actually don't know the effects of that, and if any of our listeners out there want to enlighten us, I'm certainly open to that, but I don't really have the facts
Right,
on
exactly.
if they have
I'm
any
just asking.
negative effects.
Yeah.
So, I can't speak with authority on it. So, I don't I personally wouldn't do it, but I don't think it should be illegal if it is.
I if there's no negative effects, I don't see what the downside is. But anyway,
Well,
we're on sports. I'm sorry.
actually, this whole biogenesis thing brings up a quote that from John Rocker a couple of weeks ago. John Rocker was relief pitcher for the Atlanta Braves, among other teams, and he's had a history of mouthing off. He's used homophobic and racial slurs before, so using John Rocker as a moral compass probably isn't the greatest idea, but he did make a pretty valid point with this quote. He said that steroids made the game better and more entertaining. He said, and this isn't a direct quote, I'm paraphrasing here. He said, ultimately, what you want to do what you go for in sports is to be entertained. You want to see someone hit a 500 foot home run. You want to see somebody score a 90-yard touchdown. Does it really matter if they're on steroids? And I feel like that's a valid point. I Even if Barry Bonds was on steroids and even if Barry Bonds was a jerk, I I feel like watching another 73 home run season would be entertaining, regardless of whether he's on steroids or not.
I think that's absolutely true, especially since I saw the other day baseball games are about 3.5 hours or something, but with only 17 minutes of actual action in
Right.
game, which is like that's absurd if you're sitting at home and watching. Maybe if you go to a game, it's different, the atmosphere, the experience of being in a ballpark, whatever.
Yeah,
But
I still feel like baseball is the best in-person
right,
sport.
but when you're watching on TV, it's just way too long and there's just way too little happening.
And a lot of that action are pitches that don't result in a ball being hit in play.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, a lot of it is just guys stepping out of the batter's box and adjusting their batting gloves. It's like, what? Guys adjusting their jock strap.
And there you go.
Just chewing some chewing tobacco and spitting it in a
It
cup somewhere.
Yeah, it's just spit, adjust sleeves,
Yeah,
adjust belt, adjust cup, whatever.
right. And so, if you're asking me, would I rather see some frozen rope that ends up in a gap and 2 run score, or somebody Joe Torre picking his nose in the dugout. I'd rather see the double.
Yeah, and I feel like if athletes on PEDs can provide us with more entertainment, then I I actually think that John Rocker has a really, really valid point. The old saying, what you don't know can't hurt you. If Let's hypothetically say that Adrian Peterson was on PEDs. If we never found out, is anybody gonna stop us after his career and say, hold on a sec, do you ever think that guy might have been on PEDs or HGH?
Right.
No, everybody's gonna
Yeah,
say, whoa, you know who is something? That Adrian Peterson.
that's
You should have
right.
seen him play. Nobody's ever gonna ask the question because we don't want to confront that truth.
Yes, whether he's on PEDs or not, he's still going to be the number one pick in every fantasy draft this year. So,
Ooh, good segue, because
yes.
I want to get off talking about steroids and onto uh, a subject that both of us are very excited to talk about, fantasy football.
Best fantasy sport and debatably even better than real sports,
I
fantasy
I
sports.
feel like fantasy football might have supplanted hockey as the fourth sport.
It's possible. You read about how many people actually play fantasy football. It's an insane amount. It's like 50 million, I think, maybe even closer to
It's ridiculous.
yeah.
And I feel like the advantage that it has over the other fantasy sports is it's every slate of NFL games is an event. It happens on one day, or I mean, like one game happens on
Well,
Monday, one game happens on Thursday, but for the
yeah.
majority of it,
Yeah.
it happens on one day. So you have a full week to digest what you just saw, analyze it, make trades. It With baseball or basketball, it requires that you pay attention to it every day if you really want to
That's
be
right.
good.
That's right.
And then that's the thing. With fantasy football, I don't need to do that. I kind of log in twice per week, once on like Tuesday and one on Friday or Saturday. And yet it's still really entertaining because that's all I need to log in.
That's right, because during the week there's injuries and you always want to be because there's always one guy every year in fantasy football that no one drafts.
It's on the waiver
He's
wire.
on the waiver wire for like 3 weeks because everyone's and he does well the first 3 weeks. And everyone's like, oh, he's a fluke, whatever. This isn't gonna last. And then all of a sudden he's got a 40-point game, and
Uh-huh.
then everyone's like, okay, this guy's for real.
And then whoever is in last place at that
Yeah,
time, or last place who's paying attention at that
yeah.
time, will get to pick him up. That's what happened to me one year with Victor
These
Cruz.
guys can swing fantasy leagues too, by the way.
Absolutely. They can swing fantasy leagues. I'd argue that they are the people that swing
I
fantasy
remember the
leagues.
one year, maybe it was 3 years ago, whenever Peyton Hillis had that really good year on the
Uh-huh.
Browns.
It was 2010, I
Yeah,
think.
he swung a lot of leagues, and last year Alfred Morris and on the Redskins. It's every year there's one guy or Miles Austin. Every year there's this one guy that in the middle of the season just comes out of nowhere, and he scores consistent 20s till the end. So yeah, it's just I don't know.
Well, and then the irony is he ends up swinging the league the next year too when somebody drafts him 20 spots too early or
It,
10 spots too early or whatever.
I've always been a consistently, and no one wants to hear about fantasy football teams. That's a rule. That's rule number one
Nobody
for
in
me.
the league and who's not in the league
Yeah,
doesn't want to hear about fantasy
but
football teams. I'm looking at you, Ray.
yeah, no, I've always found that there's a strategy I have. I'm always like 8-5, and I always like just sneak into the. I'm consistently like a pretty decent drafter. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I feel like, and I'm this is kind of giving away my strategy a little bit, but um, quarterbacks you can always wait on in fantasy
I feel that
football.
way too, actually.
And a lot of people go with Rodgers and Breeze and Brady and Manning early, but if you look at the amount of quarterbacks, really, if you go down, let's say there's only a 10-team fantasy football league. There's about 15 quality quarterbacks in the league, and you can wait on any number of them. Like, what's the difference really between? Obviously, there's a difference between the Rodgers and the Breezes and everyone else, right?
Right.
However,
Is there really that much of a difference between Romo or Manning? I mean,
yeah,
maybe
no.
if you're actually trying to win like the last 2 minutes of a close game, there is, but over an entire season, fantasy wise, there really isn't.
And if you want to get a Rodgers or a Breeze, you have to spend a really high pick on them.
Or
Whereas,
a lot of money if you're in an auction league.
right, whereas you can wait till the third, fourth round to get a Romo or a Rivers or a Schaub or well,
Hmm.
actually Rivers is a bad example because or like a maybe a Stafford or
Or or like this year, Carson Palmer, you could even wait until like the seventh or eighth round if you really
there's
want to get an
yeah
extreme with it.
there's just and these guys obviously aren't going to give you Rodgers numbers, but they're going to be at least consistently league average to a little bit above league average.
Right.
And when in a league that's full of quarterbacks, that's fine. And especially now, if you look at the running back situation
Oh
in
yeah.
fantasy football, that's a dire situation.
That's always where I screw up. I'm a big believer in the take the best player available, not what you need thing.
Yeah.
But the problem is that makes me wait until like the seventh round to pick up my second running back, and it's like, oh, well, that sucks. I'm stuck with Isaac Redmond for a year.
And taking the best player available is fine.
It's fine if it's like an actual NFL draft because there's 55 spots. Odds are you're gonna find a spot for
Right.
the guy. But in fantasy, you no two ways about it. You need at least two good running
And
backs to win.
also it depends on whether the people in the league are really willing to trade a lot because in our league historically it's been a lot of they draft a team and they kind of just want to stay put with that team or I don't know maybe about half the teams kind of just want to stay put, right?
Yeah, half want to trade, half want to stay put.
And I mean it could work if everybody wanted to trade and you pick the best player available, but I mean unless you've got Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham and obviously somebody else needs a tight end, you only have one tight end spot, you're not really going to be able to unload anybody. I don't know.
Right. Well, actually, a handy tip for quarterbacks, just getting back to your point for a second. I forget where I heard this. It might have been from Barry, it might have been from someone else. The trick he said is uh, the top take the next two quarterbacks off the list, like just in
Hmm.
your mind, pretend that they've been drafted, then look down and say, can I live with anybody else on this list? And if the answer is yes, then you don't need to take one yet.
That's a good
And
strategy.
I mean, obviously, this is still prone to bad luck, like if there's a run on quarterbacks. But for instance, if you took Rodgers and Brady or Rodgers and Manning off the list and said, okay, can I live with anybody else? Like you said, there's 15 people that, yeah, I wouldn't be thrilled, but I could definitely live with for a season if it meant getting that second running back early.
Speaking of Brady, do you think he's going to be overvalued or undervalued this year?
I feel like there, I actually feel like he's going to be properly valued because I feel like some of the people will say, well, he lost Welker, he lost all his receivers. I'm gonna wait on Brady.
Hernandez.
Or yeah, I'm get and
Gronkowski's
lost
hurt.
Hernandez, Gronkowski, Welker. Lloyd wasn't good in the first place, but
Lloyd's gone now.
yeah, Lloyd's gone anyways. But so half the people are going to wait and see if he drops, and I feel like half the people are gonna go the other way because they're counting on the fact that, he's Tom Brady, he'll figure it out.
He still had a pretty good year in that one year where his leading receiver was Rashay Caldwell. He still had a pretty good year.
Right, but I feel like the difference there is that he was younger.
Yeah,
And with a better offensive line, new center this year.
yeah.
Who I actually met at SBC Boston, Ryan Wendell. Nice guy.
Is he?
Yeah, shout out to Ryan Wendell on the 0.02% chance you're listening to this. Um,
I think he's going to be calling in later.
Yeah. We're advertising John Hamm and Leo DiCaprio as guests. Coming up next week, Ryan Wendell will be joining the show. But
Let's see if we can squeeze him in between those two. Yeah.
actually, it's funny. And Gavin and I were talking about this last week.
Hmm.
You could see the effects of Bill Belichick's brainwashing when it comes to dealing with the media when he talked to his players because Ryan Wendell sounded he did the best Bill Belichick impression I've ever seen. I mean, like a, not like an I'm trying to be funny Bill Belichick impression, but like a not just in general not saying anything Bill Belichick.
Right.
Uh,
Well,
because like it could have been because a few people at our camp were brave enough to ask him about Aaron Hernandez, um, but still he just didn't say anything and.
I would really love to see the Patriots on Hard Knocks. It'll never ever happen because of Belichick in a million
Or
years.
Robert Kraft, because if you notice, only bad owners had. Well, I actually shouldn't say that because the Ravens were on Hard Knocks one year and they have a good owner.
Yeah.
But in general, only really bad
And the
owners allow it.
Cowboys.
Like Jerry Jones, obviously,
Well, he's
would,
not a bad owner. He's a bad he takes too he
is
makes
an
it he's an
egomaniac
egomaniac, right? He needs to as an owner he's fine. As a person that runs
as
the
a
team,
GM.
as a GM, he's horrible.
I feel like it's just. I don't get why owners are GMs anymore. I feel like the best owners just hire the best front office staff and then stay out of their way. I
I
don't know why Jerry Jones
I
can't
think Jerry
accept
Jones
that.
is pretty much the only owner that's still a GM,
No,
right?
Mike Brown, in Cincinnati's still a GM,
Oh, is he?
and he's he hasn't done a terrible job. Like I could think of some GMs who've done worse, but I could
Mike
also think of it.
Tannenbaum.
Tannenbaum's done worse. Marty Herney down in Carolina did worse,
That's true.
but there are definitely a bunch that I would rather have.
Hmm.
I just don't get owners being GMs. It's just ego, right? Like I can
Oh,
imagine.
yeah.
It's like you always say when people get famous, they're surrounded by yes men.
That's
So it's
right.
like Jerry Jones was speaking to a close advisor of his. Hey, you know what I'm gonna do? Feel like I should be the GM too. What do you think about that?
Great, sir. I
That yeah, good,
best idea I've ever heard.
capital idea,
And
boss.
then he's like, actually, I don't know about being a GM. Oh, terrible idea. Terrible idea. Well, actually, never mind. I think I'm gonna be the GM. Great,
Just stick
great.
with your guys.
Stick with your gut. That's right. Yeah. That's how every conversation goes in the Jones
And
skybox up there.
And to avoid being unfair to Jerry Jones, this isn't just him. It's any multimillionaire, any billionaire who just become so famous that nobody's ever going to say no to them.
Did the Cowboys win a Super Bowl in Jerry Jones's lifetime?
They did
I
actually.
mean, for the
I mean, in his ownership,
yeah, for the
uh,
rest of
yeah, they did in the first couple years when he had Jimmy Johnson and Michael Irvin and
All right, let me.
Troy Aikman and all
Did
those
the
guys.
Cowboys win a Super Bowl with Tony Romo as their QB?
No,
All
the,
right. Yeah, I don't see it happening either.
but I feel like those. First of all, those '90s Cowboys. It wasn't all Jerry Jones. Jimmy Johnson had a lot of input on player personnel decisions and all
Yeah,
that.
I really don't think Jason Garrett is a top quality coach.
I don't think Jason Garrett is a borderline medium quality coach. There are some I'd less rather have than Jason Garrett, but it, I would rather have like at least 16 others.
Yeah,
And
definitely. So
so,
fantasy football, we kind of got off topic
right.
there.
Fantasy football. No, we all agree that AP is the number one pick, right?
Oh, he
And
has to. My problem was last year I could have gotten him, and I chose Matt Forte instead, who was decent, but Adrian Peterson obviously was otherworldly. So
I mean, I could have gotten him too. He was available in my third round. I'm not disappointed that I didn't get him though, because like obviously knowing what I know now, if I had to do it over again, I'd draft him. But if you know how there are some picks that you second guess after the fact, and some that you just stare at in horror, and it's like, my God, what was I doing? I feel like for me, and for you, passing on Peterson was the first type. I just don't trust running backs with knee injuries.
yeah, I think. Well, I think everyone's pretty much in the same boat. At least in almost every draft, I'm sure he lasted past the first round, right?
Yes, in most
So
drafts,
in
yes.
most drafts, so everyone really had a chance to get him. They just decided he was too much of a risk or whatever. But
Hmm.
obviously, not going to make that mistake again. And also, the one guy that I just can't have on my team anymore ever is Chris Johnson from the Titans because
It's
every
fantastic.
year, every year it's something with him. You draft him too high, he doesn't produce at all. You draft him as kind of a bargain, doesn't produce. I trade him, he starts producing.
There you go.
It's just unbelievable. This guy, he just ruins. He drives me
Well,
insane.
the thing about Chris Johnson is he's you're you're not going to get any type of consistency with him because
Unbelievable.
he doesn't fall forward. He's not going to get 4 or 5 yards. But in fantasy, if he reels off one of those 60-yard touchdowns that he's known for, who's good for at least like one of those every 4 games or so, at least. That's what six like five plus 11. 11 points right there. It could get you 10 points with one
This
run.
is
Y-
ESPN standard
Yeah,
scoring we're
ESPN
talking about.
standard scoring. But that's the thing. You just never know when those runs are gonna come. And if he's on your team on a week where he has two of those, you'll forget all of those weeks where he gave you one, two.
No, I won't forget because it's been burned into my memory.
Well, that's the thing. He will either give you five or under, or he will give you a 20.
Yeah, I can't deal with players like that though.
Yeah,
Those
I stay away from
I
Chris
stay
Johnson.
away from Chris Johnson, and also the other guy. Every year I say this is this guy's year.
Is it McFadden?
It's McFadden.
Uh,
It's
there you
McFadden,
go.
and I'm sure there's been millions of other people in my position where it's like this is his year. Every year I say that, and every year he starts off doing extremely
He'll
well,
get injured.
and then he leaves his ACL on the turf.
Out
It
there.
just
Well, actually, the Raiders really screwed him last year. They went to, I think, zone blocking, which really threw him off because you have like zone blocking is it's kind of for LaShawn
that's what
McCoys and
Foster uses,
Arian
right? Yeah,
Foster. It's not for an up and it's not for an up and downhill back like McFadden.
yeah,
He really benefited from angle blocking, and they mercifully the Raiders switched back to that this year.
yeah.
But last year, even before the injury, they really screwed him.
Yeah,
Um,
the Raiders, yeah. McFadden and Chris Johnson, those are the two running backs can never have on my team ever again.
It,
I don't know if there's any. Is there anybody like that for you?
for me, Mark Ingram. I've had him two. You laugh, but I've had him 2 straight years.
Well, he's hardly a top level. I'm talking about guys
No, no,
that
no. I had him as my second running back. This isn't a bench guy. I had to start him.
for those listening, that just shows the skills of Andrew Goldstein at drafting in fantasy
Hey, I
football.
made the playoffs last year. Did you make the playoffs
Don't
last
remind
year?
me. Don't remind me.
Uh,
I was just left out,
it
but
was
yeah.
it was actually awful. I know nobody likes hearing about fantasy teams, but I'm pretty sure somebody out there can relate to this. I was playing one of our friends named Liam, who we might have on the show in the future. Um, I got out to it's a 2 week thing, so it's like the added scores from week 14 and 15, and whoever has the higher one moves on. Um,
Sure.
week 14, I get out to a 40-point lead. 40-point lead. I'm trash talking Liam. Like he forgot to make one of his roster moves that week. Like he accidentally left his kicker spot open or something. And I'm like, come on, man. Like lose with a little bit of dignity.
Right.
So the next week, I lose it all. I
Yeah.
he's like he scores 50 more points than I did. And the kicker is one of my receivers got a zero, right before the game started, I had benched James Jones, who got a 27.
Was that the Doug Martin getting exploding week
No,
that
that was week 10.
Oh, that was week
That was
10.
week
Because I
10.
remember that one. That won a lot of games too. Obviously,
Yeah,
Doug Martin
the
pretty
one
much.
where he had like 53 points.
What did he have? Like 250 yards
250
rushing and
yards,
like
4
four
touchdowns.
touchdowns.
So it
Yeah,
was, hold on, 6, 12, 18, 24, 25, 40, 49 points, I
yeah,
think.
I
Well,
something like that.
minus receiving yards. I don't know if he had
Yeah,
any of those
he
in that
definitely
game.
had receiving. Yeah, I think he had over 50.
Well, he's playing the Raiders defense, so there you go.
Well, there's playing the Raiders defense, and then there's
And then there's that.
then there's getting. I mean, obviously Raiders defense isn't any good, but 250 yards, 4 touchdowns is like
Uh,
once in a lifetime game.
that's true. That's true.
You're never gonna see that, or you are, but
I mean, like, you're never going to see that from the same player
yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah.
All right, so our fantasy draft's probably going to happen in a couple of weeks. I actually had to contact Liam and tell him to get on that,
Hmm.
scheduling the draft. But let's see. Oh, I was actually reading this on Bleacher Report, and then I confirmed it with the NFL rulebook, and I'll pull up the article now.
Sure.
Uh, NFL, often called the No Fun League because of their of their hiatus, not their hiatus, their restrictions
Hmm.
on celebrations, both for touchdowns and for otherwise.
Yeah.
Um, Now they're taking it to a new level. Reports today from members of the media at Vikings camp and Panthers camp, and I'm quoting a Bleacher Report article by Gabe Zaldivar, their pop culture lead writer.
Okay.
Reports today from members of the media at Vikings camp and Panthers camp indicate that referees working training camps are warning players that they'll be penalized if they taunt opponents by spinning the ball. These acts include, but are not limited to, and the article continues, sack dances, home run swing, Incredible Hulk, spiking the ball, throwing or shoving the ball, pointing at the ball, verbal taunting, military salute, standing over an opponent, or dancing. These are all the punishable offenses
By the way, that applies to almost every single celebration that you
that's
could
ever
possibly.
been done.
And hold on, are we just banning the Incredible Hulk, or are we going after all the Avengers? Come on now. I feel like this is superhero discrimination right now.
This is superhero
What if I want to
discrimination.
do an Iron Man? How about
Hawkeye?
that?
What about a Hawkeye?
No, no one wants to do Hawkeye.
Yeah, Hawkeye's the worst. Actually, I thought that Captain America was the worst. I didn't like him.
Stop. Hawkeye was just a guy who had an arrow
That
that exploded when he shot it.
that's true,
You're
but
fighting aliens. How can you? Well, anyway.
just one more word on that. Captain America, I always hate the good. I mean, like, you know how in like a team of anything, like team of heroes, TV show, whatever, there's always the one like choir boy that's like, no, this is illegal. We can't do this. We have to work as a team. Blah 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 blah. Every time he spoke, I'm like, shut up, Captain America.
Well, yeah, that guy is annoying, but if you had everybody just walking around like Robert Downey Jr., you can't just have a team full of loose cannons. You know what I mean? Then no one's a loose cannon. Do you know what I'm saying?
The newsroom is just everybody is a loose cannon, and I love it.
It just doesn't work. I guess
Um,
that's why the newsroom doesn't work either.
the
But
newsroom, it works just fine. It gets good ratings, but actually, I would like to see the next Avengers movie written by Aaron Sorkin.
oh my
Like
goodness.
the aliens and the Avengers just have a 2 hour long walk and talk. Um,
Sure.
well, this is getting besides the point, but the celebrations, they pretty much outlawed celebrating. They
Yeah.
like handing the ball to the referee and shaking hands with somebody. That's essentially all you can do anymore.
And really, why do these have to be banned? It's not like they're offending anyone. You think anybody's offended by what's some of the things that are banned?
Like spiking the
Yeah,
ball.
spiking the ball. Like Gronkowski scores a touchdown, spikes the ball. Is anyone really like? Does that really soil the dignity of the game? Like, I don't understand
No,
why.
no, you don't understand. They're not respecting the game. They're not respecting the game, Matt
I
Markel.
mean, come on now. Like, all of a sudden, I just don't understand. I mean, I can understand the outrage over Randy Moss mooning somebody
I
or
really don't
whatever.
even understand the outrage over that. He didn't actually moon anybody. I
Well,
thought it was pretty funny.
it's funny, but I
And
mean,
then, of course, Joe Buck takes the fun out of it.
yeah,
That is a disgusting act.
it's definitely funny. It's definitely funny, but I can understand why they wouldn't want that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
it's at least a
Because
little.
it's a slippery slope. It could
It's at
lead
least a
to
little
other
bit
things.
inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
However, spiking football, not inappropriate whatsoever.
You like, I wanted to see like somebody challenge the rule and like not spike it, just kind of drop it, or like just go to spike it and stop halfway down, or just to screw with the refs or
Yeah. And
something.
how far does this go? Like, next, are they just gonna ban Gatorade celebrations, or
Uh,
is there
no,
gonna stop?
smiling. It's like the driver's license shot where they tell you not to smile. It's like if you smile after you score a touchdown, that's 15 yards right there. You just have to kind of look at the referee, nod, and just walk on back.
Well, we're talking about the same organization that likes to pretend that gambling on their sport doesn't exist, even though it's one of the biggest
And that
moneymakers on the sport.
concussions, and also up until a year or two ago, that concussions didn't
Right.
exist.
So this is the kind of these are the kind of people that are running this league. So
Hmm.
I mean, nothing is past them. You know what I
I've kind of
mean?
soured on Goodell.
Oh, he's really not
I mean, I
anything at
don't
all.
think
He,
I'm not going as extreme as some people. I don't think he's the worst commissioner of all time because I feel like Gary Bettman's worse. All the NBA commissioners before
he's
Stern
certainly
were
the worst
incompetent.
NFL commissioner, I would say.
One of the worst. I mean, in his defense, nobody before him did anything about concussions either. Like Paul Tagliabue didn't do anything, and
Well, they didn't really know much about it until now is when everybody's really being affected by it, coming out of the woodwork and saying stuff about it. But during their time, it wasn't really an issue.
oh, that's true. Well,
And now that it's an issue for him, he uses players' safety to do a lot of things that really, change a lot of rules and stuff that really don't need to be changed. And he cites player safety for a lot of his own
for a
personal,
lot of rules that he just wants to
yeah, for his
implement.
own
Um,
personal agenda, he cites player safety.
and kind of like all of those late hit things where you really weren't sure what qualified as a late
Yeah,
hit, or defenseless receiver over the middle, like even if it's a legal hit, they started instituting penalties on
they're
that.
such hypocrites because all they talk about is player safety, but they also just want to make a longer schedule for the season. They want to push it to an 18 game schedule, and it's like that's not player safety. It's
Well,
absurd.
during the lockout, the owners just had Goodell in their pockets, essentially.
What do you mean?
Um, like essentially, Goodell, he didn't show public support of one side or the other, but it was kind of evident in the deal that ended up being struck between the owners and the players that Goodell was on the owners' side. The owners got more of the TV money. They they gave up a few of the cosmetic things that they knew they probably weren't going to get anyways, like an 18 game schedule. But I I don't know. I feel like a lot of the old money owners, like Al Davis when he was still alive, Jerry Jones today, they kind of run the National Football League, and Goodell just kind of sits there and nods.
Well, yeah, it's possible, but he also, a lot of disciplinary stuff is handled by him.
Hmm.
Personally, a lot of stuff involving
We're probably gonna get fined $5,000 just for making fun of him on this show.
I wouldn't put it past him, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we are approaching the hour mark, running out of time here on AM Sports Live. Any last words, Markel?
Well, I know you have a new book coming out,
Mm.
or you not coming out, but
Not coming
you're
out.
working on
I've
it.
started work on a new book. For people who didn't see the Facebook status, I'm gonna keep it hidden a little while longer, just because a lot of the creative stuff is still taking
What's
shape,
the
and
concept of your book again? Remind the audience.
the concept is just chronicling my childhood as a Jets fan, and believe me, there's a lot to write there. So,
Well, you
uh,
also have another book coming out too. I mean, that came out. If you want to
oh,
plug that.
oh yeah, I've already plugged it a couple of times on both AM Sports Live and NFL Goal Line, but the football volumes 2012-2013 season available on Amazon.com and KidPub.com. Go check it out. All the proceeds go towards the NJ Sandy Relief Fund. So, yeah, a lot of stuff in the works for me, and not the least of which is this radio show where we are going to be hopefully having our first guest on Friday if we could get anybody to make it in time for the show. And we have people working on a logo and eventually a theme song. So a lot of exciting stuff in the offing
That's
here
right.
on AM Sports
Breaking
Live.
Bad coming back this Sunday.
I'm gonna need to talk with you about that
Oh,
because
I can't
on next
wait.
week's show because you were nice enough to talk with me about Newsroom, even though you probably wanted to remove my head every time I talked about it. So, you know what? I should probably at least
Yeah,
give you the same courtesy of
sure,
Breaking Bad.
sure. All
All right,
right. So, yeah, you sign off.
all right. So, that was it for Matt Markow. I'm Andrew Goldstein. Your August 6th edition of AM Sports Live is now off the air.